I'm Paul Carr.
And I'm Sarah Lacey.
And this is the weirdest episode of Why Is This News we've ever done. So this week's guest, Sarah,
This is like if we ever get fired from TechCrunch, this is how we'll have to do the show.
Yeah.
Because we have no technical assistance at all right now.
I know. It's good. I like it. It just shows that we could do it if we had to. If there was a nuclear attack.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see how it turns out.
That's true. You're probably seeing half of each of our heads right now. So this week's guest, Sarah, is you, in a sort of creepy roundabout way. Where are you?
I am in China.
You're in a hotel room in China by the looks of it.
I am in a hotel room in China in Tianjin, which is where the World Economic Forum is having what it calls Summer Davos, even though it's not summer or in Davos.
Okay. Well, I'm in, I should say, I'm in a hotel room in Las Vegas, for reasons that have nothing to do with the World Economic Forum. So,
are you doing something there, or are you just...
I couldn't say. No, I'm writing something for The Guardian. I'm not, and I'll probably...
So we're both working.
We're both working. Oh yeah, no, this isn't just a vacation. I mean, just because I'm sitting in a suite in Vegas, don't think I'm slacking off. I'm not. But I have nothing interesting to say about Vegas. You have, it sounds, plenty to say about summer, in quotes, Davos.
In quotes.
What are your big takeaways? So first of all, for those who haven't read your amazing posts coming out of the event, sum up in a nut what Summer Davos is and what the point of it is.
So it's the fourth time they've held it. They call it the meeting of the new champions, which sounds very dramatic. And basically, you know, if you go to the grown-up Davos, it's a lot of old European white dudes. It's a lot of financiers. There's people like George Soros, Bill Gates, you know, the people who've been running the Western establishment, essentially, for whether it's from a business or political point of view, for some time. And I think the organizers wanted to do something that was really respecting and explicitly looking at this phenomenon of emerging markets, because it's only sort of getting... The world economic picture is only getting more and more messy and more confusing and more convoluted. So in some senses, this is the perfect one for me to go to because, as you know, I can't stand old Western European guys. I like young, crazy emerging markets.
Yes, indeed. So what are your big takeaways? So this is day 2. You're day 3.
I'm starting day 3.
Okay. So
yeah.
So you've seen a lot. What are your highlights?
Well, it's interesting. So the theme of the topic of the conference, rather, is sustainability. And coming into it, I sort of had the American point of view of, well, that just means like, you know, global warming and climate change and energy. Yeah. But actually, there's been a lot of talk about water. Jim Rogers, who's from the CEO of Duke Energy, was one of the most interesting speakers that I saw. He said that water was going to be the new oil of the 21st century. That's a really dramatic statement, and it's interesting because we don't have problems getting water in the U.S., so we're not very close to the problem. We have at least had issues with like rolling blackouts and energy costs going up and fuel costs, so we have some experience of the energy side of the equation. But in terms of water shortage, you know, there's riots and fights and people in the developing world who aren't getting China, not very far from where I'm sitting in China, in fact. So it's been eye-opening to see what a problem that is. And interestingly, another thing that Jim Rogers said and some other people have said is it's not a water problem, it's a water management issue. So, you know, that's a problem technology can really solve.
How can technology solve that?
Well, it's how you route the water and how you use the water.
Okay. So the other thing, I've just read a post that you've written in drafts, but you haven't...
And also, sorry, by the way, like purification of the water and desalination. One guy talked about a program in the Middle East that's happening with Palestinian and Israeli cooperation called, I believe, Dead to Red or Red to Dead, where they're taking the salt from the Dead Sea, and as they desalinate the Dead Sea, they're resalinating the Red Sea so that they can use both.
Dead to Red.
And that... Yeah, and then in the middle, there's like some sort of clean power generation. Huh. So, you know, I mean, that's a very clear example of, in a desert, technology really being used to solve the problem.
So the other thing is, and we should touch on this briefly because you wrote it in a post that I think you're about to publish, so that should be up by the time this video goes up. Women in the on the continent. Does something explain? You're going to start another fight. Freaking women again.
Well, and I sent a note to Mike, and I was like, I will not go there again if you don't want me to go there. But, I was irritated by the whole brouhaha about it a while ago because everyone was attacking Michael Arrington as part of the problem, which, first of all, I think gives Michael Arrington way more power than he actually has.
He plays a part in a lot of problems, but I think this one isn't one of them.
I think it's also interesting since I don't know anyone else in our category that has, a woman CEO, and more than half of the team are women, both senior and junior teams. So, I think it was a little bit ridiculous, the brouhaha to begin with, but point being, I've been a woman covering business for 15 years, and I must have been on more than a dozen panels on this issue. I must have talked to 1 million people. I've had every editor commission an article on this. And, so I'm just very exhausted with the issue. But I saw a write-up for a panel at Davos that was about women in the Asian workforce, which I think is a fascinating topic, given the women that are powering the factories, given, the historical one-child policy and, women in China not exactly feeling wanted or welcome. And there's some new studies that show that women and men are entering college at equal rates in China. And, I got there and I was a little disappointed because we weren't really talking about any of these cultural issues. We were talking about, why aren't there more women in business? Is it because of work-life balance? Is it because of schooling? Is it a glass ceiling? I mean, it was literally I'm here with people all over the emerging world, the exact same conversation we've been having in the U.S.
You flew to China for that. I think that's important that you had to fly thousands of miles to have the same
but the interesting thing is that I wanted to highlight in my post is the World Economic Forum. Everyone's saying this, and I'm just like, God, this is the same conversation. What's the model? And I look at the wall, and there's a chart showing that basically there's gender parity in the United States. It's like,
there isn't.
What?
There is
so
no.
The shocking
there is no
thing is
issue
we're the model
in the US.
Yeah.
So why are we having this discussion? Why is this news?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm officially just declaring the topic dead, at least for me. I have no reach for the rest of the world.
Well, and given you're the only woman who is employed in the technology industry, then
I know. Until we get some sort of clarity around how much of this is a choice, because I started pushing back on these numbers, and a lot of high-ranking women who worked at companies in the U.S. have said, we've tried to mentor and develop women, and they've opted out to be more part-time or stay in a lower managerial job rather than becoming the senior partner.
Is this to have children? Presumably.
Right. Or just they don't want to. They want some other kind of balance. They want to travel. They want to, they have other interests. And until we get, I feel like the rest of the world is trying to get to the point where the U.S. is, where there's a basic parity in lower level management jobs, and women have a foot in the door and women have the choice. And until we see surveys that really talk about whether this is a choice issue or this is a glass ceiling issue, this topic is so dead. I never want to talk about this issue again. Talking about it does nothing.
Then
now that we've talked about it for 10 minutes. Thanks for bringing it up, Paul.
These will be the last. I know. I'm sorry. Well, typical guy.